just so I can get the attention of all the weirdos out there, there is a scene where you get to see her feet. We gotta have feet, man. Shinkai loves his feet, damn it. So this is gonna be unscripted. I usually write a script for these, but I don't know if I have time to actually do that and produce a video. So if I get things wrong, you're more than welcome to clown on me, and I apologize if I do. I'm just recording this right after watching this movie. So anyway, we're gonna talk about the newest film by Makoto Shinkai, Suzume. You know, my experience with Shinkai, I haven't seen any of his films before Your Name, so I'm only used to like his Your Name arc. If you don't know, Your Name is his most popular movie. It's his most successful movie, and basically established like a formula for him. So after Your Name was Weathering With You, which followed the same tropes and structure of Your Name, and you know, that's fine. He has a formula and it works, and people want to watch that, so yeah, he has that. So if it happens once, it's a coincidence. If it happens again, it becomes a pattern. Does Suzume become a pattern? Kind of. Suzume does borrow some elements from Shinkai's previous two films, but this one is a bit more, it has its own uniqueness, I'd say. The only problem, it's kind of forced to adopt the quote-unquote romance, because a guy and a girl can't just be friends, apparently. Especially a guy that's way older than the girl. They just can't be friends. You have to imply that there's some kind of romance, and that kind of weakens the movie a lot. And it's like, ah, man. We'll talk more about it later on. But ultimately, the movie is about, you know, a girl trying to overcome her own trauma. But, you know, the spoiler-free review would be, the movie is visually impressive. There's a lot of beautiful shots, and the composition is great. And the sound design was really good. It was really crisp. I watched this in IMAX, so I'm a bit biased towards that. And the music, I like the music. It was very orchestral. There's a nice reference to Kiki's Delivery Service. There's a lot of city pop, and I love that. Serizawa has good taste. This movie feels like a JRPG, where it goes from like a high school student. She meets her companions. Throughout the adventure, they fight monsters, and then eventually at the end, she fights God to save her boyfriend. Which, is that a spoiler? If it is, I'm very sorry, but this literally happens in the trailer. The set pieces were really good, even though the action just boils down to a girl trying to close a door. I really enjoyed that. I do recommend watching it in theaters if you have the chance, especially if you like Your Name and the Your Name formula. I mean, it's basically Your Name 3 at this point. We have a trilogy of these movies. Will we have a Your Name 4? Well, who knows? We'll find out in like 5 years from now. But yeah, I mean, I recommend watching it. It's nice. It's easy to understand, and it's a good time. Is it better than his previous films? In some aspects, yes. In other aspects, no. But I think it's worth watching, at least for the action set pieces alone. Now that's out of the way, let's get more into spoiler territory and talk about probably one of the weakest aspects of the film, which unfortunately is the story. Brief summary, the movie is about a girl named Suzume who basically suffered a parental loss. Her mom died when she was young because of a natural disaster. And, you know, she meets a boy named Soda! He's clearly a very older gentleman who's looking for these doors. And throughout Japan, there are these ruins of abandoned towns. There are doors that lead to the afterlife, or, you know, apologies if I don't get the vocabulary right, but I just don't remember. Yeah, there's like a whole another world, and inside that world is a worm like eldritch creature, where if it slams itself on the ground, it causes earthquakes and people die. And only certain people can see these doors, if they're magical or whatever. So Suzume opens the door, and then she picks up a keystone, which turns into a cat, and that cat is basically like God keeping the worm at bay. So it escapes. And then eventually the worm gets out and almost causes an earthquake, killing people. But luckily Sota and Suzume were able to stop it. That's when they meet officially. And Suzume is like, oh my god, this guy hot as fuck. And so she treats his wounds. And this one's really funny. It's not a knock on the movie, I just find it hilarious. So the man needs to sit down. So he picks up this chair with 3 legs, which is clearly like a child relic for Suzume that was made by her mom. And he's like, oh, this is a good chair to sit on. So he sits on the chair when he could have just sat on the functional 4-legged chair that was to his left. I don't know why he didn't do that. That would have been the most smart thing to do, instead of just sitting on a chair that could fall over because it has 3 legs. But whatever, it's funny. Anyway, the cat comes back, and the cat's a little shit because it's a cat, and cats are assholes. I should know because I have a cat, and she's a piece of shit, but I still love her anyways. So the cat turns the guy into a chair. So this hot guy is now a chair for the majority of the movie now. So yes, the trailers where he becomes a chair, it's as stupid as you might think. But Shinkai rolls with it. But, you know, the chair has some significance to Suzume's life. So anyways, now the two have to work together to catch the cat. To one, turn Soda back into a human, and to turn that cat back into a keystone to keep the worm at bay. Because now that the cat's free, the worm can escape. So they go on a road trip across Japan, meeting various characters that, you know, treat Suzume right, you know, are kind to her. Meanwhile, Suzume's aunt, Tamaki, is worried that her child ran away and tries to go after her. Eventually, after closing a couple doors, we get these really cool set pieces. Sota turns into a keystone because the cat traded places with him. And Suzume had to use his lifeless chair body to seal the worm, saving millions of lives, basically. Obviously, she's in love with the boy. So she's like, I want him back. I can't live my life without him. Which I guess you need a plot. So Auntie catches up, you know, they have a fight. You know, the story is basically very simple. And then sporadically they'll have moments where the aunt and Suzume are, you know, they have tension because Tamaki is very controlling. She's very overprotective. While Suzume wants to be more free and, like, you know, go on an adventure, I guess. There's a really serious argument that happens between these two. It was pretty dark, I would say. They continue her journey. The end goal is that Suzume wants to go back home so that she can find the door, the first door she found, to find Soda, but also to confront her past. That's like the secondary objective. Primary objective, find boyfriend, save boyfriend. Secondary objective, find your mom, because she's somewhere out there. So through that door, they end up finding the worm. Basically, she fights God with the two cat gods, who are now good for some reason, and she saves her boyfriend. That's basically how the movie ends. Oh wait, yeah, and in the last 5 minutes, she has to overcome her trauma of losing her mom, which we'll talk more about that later. So overall, the story is very simple. It's pretty action heavy, not like shonen fights, guns action, but more action compared to Shinkai's other movies. And it was a fun ride. You know, it's like a roller coaster kind of plot. So when I said the story was bad, I was kind of lying to you to bait you in. I actually think there were some aspects of the story I did like, and then there's ones that I don't like, and I'll get to that later. But one of the things that I like about the story is mostly just the world building and the lore of the story, which is really funny because we're talking about Japan, which is a real country with real people. Actually, no, I lied. The lore is, I don't like the lore. The lore of the fantasy stuff, where they basically had a whole exposition dump to explain what they are, I didn't really care for that sort of thing. I'm sure because I just don't know. I don't have the pre-existing knowledge of what these gods are supposed to be, so I didn't really care for why these gods exist. But I really, really liked, like, learning about the life of Japan post Fukushima, which I think it's supposed to be a reference to Fukushima. If you don't know, it's like there was a tsunami in 2011 that hit Japan, and then it hit like a nuclear site, and then that site kind of exploded, and lots of people died. You know, like Chernobyl. But yeah, I like that there was like a consequence now that you see these students, you see the Japanese people, they get like Amber Alerts on their phones that tell them that an earthquake's coming, and most of them nowadays are like, oh, you know, another earthquake. Yeah, I liked learning how, you know, most people just live their lives. You know, something bad happens to them, but, you know, eventually things return back to normal. It's just one extra thing is added to their daily routine. And then another thing I did like was when they were closing the doors, they have to, you know, channel the memories of the past of, like, the people that used to live here. Like, these abandoned towns, you know, they weren't abandoned before. People used to live there. People used to go on these rides. And it's like, oh, yeah, remember when people used to live here? Now people don't live here anymore. Well, I wonder what happened. The earthquakes? Maybe it's the earthquakes. Oh, and I also enjoyed Sota and Suzume, like, going around Japan, meeting various people, you know, learning how they live their lives. And, you know, just nice, wholesome slice of life. Fun. There's a moment where Suzume has to take care of 2 kids, and she's really bad at it because she's like 16. And it was really funny. And then there was a moment where she has to work for like a adult karaoke bar. And that was fun too, because she was clearly overworked, and it was really funny. So those are the moments that I really enjoyed. And I also like the set pieces where she has to close the doors to keep the demons to keep the worm at bay. Those I didn't have an issue with that. Now let's talk about the romance.
Because of the implication.
Okay.
So here are my issues with this story. One, the romance was not good. The romance was completely shoehorned in, and it was very cringe. Why is the romance bad, you might ask? Because one, the movie ships a 16-year-old with a man that's like in his 20s. Now, morally, that is wrong, and the movie is aware of that, which is why they turn him into a chair. Because a teen girl kissing an older man is problematic. But if he's a chair, then it's okay. So he gets turned into a chair, and this allows her to, kiss him, sit on him, step on him, which is played for laughs. It's kind of funny. But it's really cringe because she's actually serious about this. Like, she genuinely likes him as a chair. Like, lady, you only known him for a week. Why are you, like, sexually assaulting this man? Like, there's a scene where it's like, hey, why don't you join us at dinner? And then she takes him and then sits on him. If this man had a nose, he would got a huge whiff of that shit. What the fuck? And I understand. She's like, it's her first love, and, he's hot. But Soda, it doesn't really reciprocate her feelings. He literally just treats her like in a platonic way, which was fine if that was the case. But at the last 20 minutes, the movie starts to imply that he loves her too. And he never says it outright, but it's implied. The movie is baiting you into a romance. And then the movie conveniently ends with him saying, well, I gotta close more doors, so I won't see you in a few years, but you know what? If you wait for me, I'll come back and see you again. And then there's a time skip, and she's clearly now 18, and then he shows up. So now the romance is okay. But man pulled a Drake. None of this would have been a problem if she was 18 to begin with, or if they just got rid of the romance entirely. But you gotta cis bait people. We got Yuri baiting, and we got yaoi baiting. Now we got hetero baiting. You know what could have fixed it? Make it an Anne and niece story. Tamaki had a lot of potential. It could have been a road trip between those two, but no, we had to have a guy because you need hot guys to sell to young women. I can't believe it. So yeah, the romance is really cringe.
I don't like it! I don't like to think about it!
So there are like some mature moments where things get really dark in a way, especially with the aunt. So Tamaki is clearly overworked, and she doesn't have time to like date and all that stuff. And there's a scene where she pretty much lashes out against Suzume, and it's the I wish I was never your parent moment. It's really sad and kind of dark, and really it comes out of nowhere. And it's because her negativity was enhanced by this black cat god that kind of just shows up and does this for the shits and giggles, and then becomes a good cat afterwards, which I never understood, and I don't know why the cat did this, but yeah, that happens. It's kind of to make Tamaki still seem like a good person, even though what she said to Suzume was absolutely horrible. It's more of a justification. It was like, oh, I was being controlled by a cat god that basically made me say those things. So she can't take responsibility for actions, or at least she tries to, but obviously, well, it's a cat god that did it. It's more of an excuse. And I didn't like this scene for many reasons, but I think the main reason why I didn't like this scene is that the movie never really shows this aspect of her character. Like, throughout the movie, Suzume was like, oh, my aunt should get a boyfriend. My aunt needs freedom. And the movie does show her getting overworked, but she's surrounded by, coworkers that, respect her and treat her properly. They're worried about her. They care for her. And, she's a parent of an adopted child, so she's worried that, her child ran away across the entire country, which makes sense. But then she goes off on this tangent where I can't find a man because I have to take care of you. I'm a 40-year-old with a child. No man will ever date me. Basically the Christmas cake archetype. And it's like, I can't really sympathize with her because throughout the movie, she clearly has people that love her. There's a guy that wants to date, that wants to be with her, and obviously likes her. And he's a very nice guy that she basically friend zoned him. Now, I'm not saying that she has to date this guy. She doesn't have to. But it's clear that there are good people that will like her if she gives them a chance. And she's like, oh, but I'm so lonely and I'm overworked. It's all your fault. And it doesn't work for me because it just doesn't work. Now, how the movie could have fixed that is if they made that nice guy into a actual creep, like a weird guy. Like then there's like supporting evidence that yes, being a single mom in her 40s attracts these kind of people that are not like good people. That would give her more like, you know, okay, now I can sympathize with your situation because you're trying to find a nice guy and all you're getting are these weirdos. And I get why they didn't do that because the whole point of the movie is that humanity is good, you know. They're always going to help you and take care of you if you're like on your own. But yeah, I just feel like that scene didn't really work. Now, what actually did work was the ending of Suzume confronting her younger self, her child self, which I guess is a time traveling thing. At first, she doesn't know what to say. And then I don't remember what she said, but it was in the tone of like, things will be okay. You will find people. You'll experience new things. And, you know, you're sad now. And it does hurt. But eventually, you'll find happiness. You know what? Maybe that's completely wrong. To be fair, I really shouldn't be doing these videos unless I've seen the movie like 6,000 times. Because I'm just going to get this shit wrong. But no, I really like this part. I was really back and forth about it. I was like, do I like this? Do I not like this? But I really like this because overall, I like Suzume a lot. Yeah, she's a weirdo. Yeah, she's kind of a stalker. Yeah, she sexually assaulted this random old guy. But I like her journey. I really liked her journey. She wants closure. I think that's it. She just wants closure for the sadness in her heart. And I think this journey was the way to do it. You know, mending her relationship with her aunt, meeting all these cool people, Orange Girl, the babies, the karaoke lady, Serizawa. I only remember his name because he's a Chad. Out of all the three main characters, which is Suzume, Soda, and Tamaki, Suzume was the best. Tamaki had potential, but he didn't. I don't think Shinkai did a good job with her character. And Soda is just, what the fuck is Soda supposed to be? Soda has his own like issues of trying to live a life between being a closer to save the world and just having a normal, you know, day job of being a teacher. And yeah, that's cool, but also it's just like a fun fact about this guy and not like, he doesn't seem like it bothers him. Yeah, other than the ending just being kind of cringe.
Because of the implication.
This is a simple story about, you know, how empathy can help a person overcome their grief. I'm sure there's more to it, but that's kind of what I got. I don't think this movie invites itself like an analysis, you know? I was more entertained than like questioning, what does this mean? What's going on here? Does this mean anything? It was more like, yeah, fucking explosions and shit. I think there's just something wrong with my brain. So I guess overall, I'd probably give this movie, you know, I'll be generous. I'll give it an 8 because I don't want to give it a 7. Even though 7 is a good number, I feel like I always give things 7s. But I'll give it an 8 just because I was entertained. And I did like this better than Weathering with You, only because of the action. And there weren't that many stupid moments. But yeah, let me know what you thought about the movie if you've seen it. Have you seen it in theaters? I mean, I recommend watching it. I mean, I had a good time. Don't forget to like the video. And, you know, I hope you have a good day. Okay, bye.
100円ください。